Molly. Come on, sweetie. Sweetheart. We're on air. We're recording, so I'm gonna need you to stop. Hey everybody, welcome into Folklore Flourish. Today is April 13th. We're here today with Molly and Jane over at Blue Box 29. Today in April, we are in the Other Realms. We are still in week 2 of the Other Realm. The Other Realm is all about the fun adventures that happen when we are in the mystical, magical realm. Also, some of the dangers that happen as well. Today, though, with April 13th, our topic for today is the sky. So with the sky, our theme is air and upper worlds. So the 4 stories we are going to see with this come from European, Chinese, Aztec, and Japanese folklore today. So enjoy these 4 stories on the sky. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to honor the cultures behind the stories we are about to explore. The tales shared here come from many peoples, lands, and traditions. I do not change these stories to fit modern expectations or to align with today's social standards. Instead, I present them as they were told, sometimes beautiful, sometimes harsh, sometimes challenging. We are not here to judge the past, but to understand it, to listen, to learn, and to honor the ancestors who carried these stories forward. We also share stories from various religious traditions. These are presented in their historical and spiritual context, with respect for their beliefs that they represent. Every culture deserves respect, context, and acknowledgement, and this space is dedicated to doing exactly that. Story 1. Sylphs, the spirits of the living air. Within the esoteric traditions of Renaissance Europe, particularly in regions corresponding to modern Germany, the sylphs are understood as elemental beings of air whose existence reflects the belief that the atmosphere is not an empty expanse, but a living medium through which sacred energy flows. And the concept of these ethereal entities was most notably articulated by the physician and alchemist Paracelsus in the 16th century, who proposed that the natural world was inhabited by intelligences corresponding to the 4 classical elements: gnomes of earth, undines of water, salamanders of fire, and sylphs of air, thereby presenting a cosmology in which each element possessed both physical and spiritual dimensions. Sylphs were described as graceful and nearly imperceptible beings, moving effortlessly through the winds and upper realms, their form as subtle as the currents they govern, symbolizing the invisible yet essential forces that sustain life and inspire thought. And although their origins are rooted in philosophical and alchemical writings rather than a single ancient myth, their integration into European folklore reflects a broader cultural intuition that breath and wind are manifestations of spirit, a concept echoed in Greek term pneuma, meaning both breath and soul, and in the Latin spiritus, which similarly denotes the animating essence of life. Within this framework, sylphs were believed to influence weather patterns, guide the movements of clouds, and inspire moments of creativity and insight, acting as intermediaries between the earthly and celestial realms. And their association with inspiration led to their depiction in later literary and artistic traditions as muses who whisper ideas into the minds of poets and thinkers, reinforcing the notion that the most profound guidance often arrives through subtle and unseen channels. Unlike many mythological beings characterized by moral dualities, sylphs were not inherently benevolent or malevolent, but instead embodied the dynamic of ever-changing nature of air itself, capable of manifesting as gentle breezes that bring clarity and renewal, or as powerful winds that signal transformation and upheaval, illustrating the necessity of balance and respect in humanity's relationship with the natural world. The symbolic significance of sylphs extends beyond their role as elemental spirits to encompass the sacredness of breath, which mark both the beginning and end of life and serves as a continuous reminder of the connection between the physical body and the unseen dimensions of existence. And this understanding resonates with spiritual transitions across cultures that regard breath as conduit of divine energy, linking individual consciousnesses to the rhythms of the cosmos. Through their presence, sylphs represent the idea that the sky and air it contains are animated by intelligences that sustain and guide life, encouraging mindfulness of the invisible forces that shape human experience and inviting individuals to recognize the act of breathing as a sacred exchange with the world around them. Ultimately, the narrative of the sylphs illustrates that air is not merely a passive element, but a living and responsive medium, carrying inspiration, transformation, and connection between realms. By acknowledging this presence, one is reminded that guidance often arrives not through dramatic revelation, but through the quiet movement of breath and wind, reinforcing the lesson that the energy sustaining life is both subtle and profound, ever present, yet easily overlooked, and that by attuning to this sacred rhythm, individuals may cultivate a deeper awareness of their place within the interconnected fabric of existence. Story 2, Feng Bo, the Keeper of the Winds. Within the mythological traditions of ancient China, the movement of wind was understood not merely as a natural phenomena, but as an expression of divine intention. And among the deities associated with this sacred force, Feng Bo, also known as Feng Po, the Madam of the Winds, stands as a powerful embodiment of the belief that breath and air carry both life and transformation. In early Chinese cosmology, wind was considered an essential manifestation of qi, the vital life energy that flows through all living beings and sustains the harmony of the universe. And Feng Bo was entrusted with the responsibility of governing this invisible yet potent force, often depicted as a celestial figure carrying a great sack or gourd filled with winds that could be released to shape the weather and influence the fate of the world. According to traditional accounts preserved in texts, such as the Shanhai Jing, or classic of mountains and seas, Feng Bo was initially portrayed as a male deity associated with storms and atmospheric change, rather evolving in popular culture into a maternal figure, Feng Po, whose wisdom and restraint symbolize the careful balance required to maintain harmony between heaven and earth. The imagery of the wind being contained within a sack reflects the understanding that breath and air, though unseen, possesses immense power when released, capable of nurturing life through gentle breezes or bringing upheaval through destructive tempests. And this duality underscores the reverence with which ancient Chinese culture regarded the forces of nature. Feng Bo's role extended beyond the regulation of weather, as the deity was also believed to influence agricultural cycles, maritime journeys, and the spiritual well-being of communities, with offerings and rituals performed to seek favorable winds and protection from storms, demonstrating the intimate relationship between human survival and the rhythms of the natural world. In Taoist philosophy, the wind's association with qi further emphasizes its connection to breath as a sacred conduit of vitality and spiritual awareness, reinforcing the idea that the act of breathing mirrors the dynamic flow of energy throughout the cosmos. And through this lens, Feng Bo can be understood not only as a meteorological deity, but also as a guardian of the life force that animates all existence. Artistic depictions frequently portray Feng Bo or Feng Po soaring across the heavens, guiding the currents of air with intention and grace, symbolizing the presence of unseen guidance that shapes both the physical environment and the inner landscapes of human experience. The reverence for wind within Chinese culture is also reflected in language and symbolism, where the character for wind, Feng, conveys notions of change, movement, and communication between realms, illustrating how the atmosphere serves as a bridge connecting heaven, earth, and humanity. Through the enduring legacy of Feng Bo, the wind becomes a metaphor for inspiration, intuition, and the subtle guidance that accompanies movement of transition, inviting individuals to listen attentively to the quiet messages carried upon the air. Ultimately, the story of Feng Bo reveals that breath is not merely a biological necessity, but a sacred expression of the universe's life-giving energy. And by recognizing the divine presence within the wind, Individuals are encouraged to cultivate harmony with the natural world and to trust the unseen forces that guide their journeys. This myth affirms the lesson that the sky is alive with intention, and that each breath serves as a reminder of humanity's connection to the greater rhythms of existence, reinforcing the understanding that sacred energy flows continuously through both the cosmos and the human spirit. Story 3. Ehecatl, the breath of creation. Within the mythological traditions of the Aztec civilization of Mesoamerica, the wind was revered as a sacred and life-giving force. Embodied by Ehecatl, the wind aspect of the great deity Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent who served as a creator, teacher, and cultural benefactor to humanity. And Ehecatl was not merely a god of atmospheric movement, but a divine manifestation of breath itself, representing the animating energy that set the cosmos into motion and sustained the existence of all living beings. According to Aztec cosmology, preserved in sources such as the Codex Borgia and later accounts recorded after the Spanish contact, the universe had passed through several cycles of creation and destruction known as the Five Suns. And during the formation of the current world, it was Ehecatl who played a crucial role in bringing life and movement to a still and silent cosmos. For after the rebirth of the sun, the celestial body remained motionless in the sky, leaving the world suspended in darkness and stagnation until Ehecatl released the sacred winds that propelled the sun and moon along their paths, establishing the rhythm of day and night and enabling the cycles necessary for life to flourish. This act underscores the Aztec understanding that breath is the catalyst of existence, transforming inert matter into a living and dynamic world. And Ehecatl presence extended beyond cosmological motion into the creation of humanity itself. For in one widely recounted narrative, Quetzalcoatl, guided by his aspect as Ehecatl, descended into Mictlan, the underworld ruled by Mictlan Tecutli, to retrieve the bones of previous generations of humanity. And after overcoming numerous trials and returning with these sacred remains, he mixed them with his own divine blood and infused them with breath, thereby restoring humankind and emphasizing that life is sustained through the sacred union of sacrifice and breath. Ehecatl was commonly depicted wearing a distinctive duck-billed mask, symbolizing the passage of wind through narrow spaces and the whistling sound it produces. And temples dedicated to him, such as those found at Tlatelolco and Calixtlahuacan, were often constructed in circular forms to allow the air to flow freely around them, reflecting the belief that sacred architecture should harmonize with the natural movement of breath and energy. The wind was also understood as a messenger between realms, carrying prayers to the heavens and divine guidance back to humanity. In an agricultural context, the Ehecatl was invoked to bring the rains by sweeping the paths of Tlaloc, the rain deity, ensuring the fertility of the land and survival of the people. Symbolically, Ehecatl represents transformation, renewal, and the unseen guidance that moves individuals forward for their journeys. For just as the wind cannot be seen, yet its presence is undeniably felt, the sacred breath within each person serves as a reminder of their connection to the cosmos and to the divine forces that sustain existence. And the Nahuatl language itself reflects this understanding, with the term Ehecatl signifying both wind and the vital forces that animates life, paralleling similar concepts found in many spiritual traditions around the world. Ultimately, the story of Ehecatl reveals that the sky is not an empty expanse, but a living domain animated by sacred energy. And each breath taken by humanity echoes the original divine act that set the universe into motion, reinforcing the lesson that breath is not merely a biological necessity, but a sacred exchange between the individual and the cosmos, guiding transformation, sustaining life, and connecting all beings to the rhythm of existence. Story 4. Tenjin, the celestial voice of inspiration. Within the spiritual and historical traditions of Japan, the figure of Tenjin represents a profound belief that the sky serves as a conduit for divine inspiration, guidance, and the sacred movement of thought. And Tenjin is the deified form Sugawara no Michizane, a renowned scholar, poet, and statesman of the Heian period, whose life and posthumous transformation illustrate the intimate relationship between human intellect and celestial influence. Born in 845 CE, Michizane was celebrated for his mastery of classical Chinese literature and his dedication to scholarship, rising to prominence within the imperial court before falling victim to political intrigue that led to his unjust exile to Da Zaifu in Kyushu, where he died in 903 CE. Following his death, a series of natural disasters, including lightning strikes, plagues, and the untimely deaths of his political adversaries, were interpreted as manifestations of his restless spirit, prompting the imperial court to seek reconciliation by restoring his titles and venerating him as Tenjin, a kami or divine spirit associated with the heavens, learning, and the guiding force of inspiration. Tenjin's connection to the sky is particularly emphasized through his association with thunder and lightning, phenomena understood with Shinto belief as expressions of divine presence and communication between realms, and shrines dedicated to him, most notably Kitano, Temmangu in Kyoto, and Dazafu, Tenmangu, becomes center of the pilgrimage where scholars and students sought his blessing for intellectual success and clarity of mind. The symbolism of Tenjin extends beyond historical reverence to embody the concept that inspiration descends upon the upper worlds like the breath carried on the wind, aligning with the broader theme that air and sky are not empty spaces but living domains through which sacred energy flows. In his frequent depiction accompanied by oxen, which are believed to have guided his funeral procession and serve as messengers of his spirit, further reinforces the interconnectedness between the earthly and celestial realms. Poetry and literature dedicated to Tenjin emphasize the transience of human life and the enduring nature of wisdom, mirroring the Heian aesthetic of Mono no Aware. The gentle awareness of impermanence and the philosophical resonance situates Tenjin within a continuum of cultural values that honor both intellectual pursuit and spiritual harmony. Through annual festivals and ongoing devotional practices, Tenjin continues to be revered as a protector of scholarship and a symbol of the transformative power of inspiration, illustrating how the human mind, like the sky, can serve as a vessel for divine insight when approached with humility and dedication. Ultimately, the story of Tenjin reveals that the sky is not merely a physical expanse, but a realm of guidance and communication, where sacred energy manifests as inspiration and wisdom. And by honoring Tenjin, individuals acknowledge that breath, thought, and creativity are interconnected expressions of a greater cosmic order, reinforcing the lesson that inspiration often arrives quietly from above, shaping destiny through subtle yet profound influence. Welcome back in. Hope you enjoyed those 4 stories of the sky. You are here with Jane and Molly today. Today's topic of the sky, the theme was air and upper worlds. So with that today, our first story comes from European folklore, but it is centered around German tales. So with our first story, the Sylphs in German folklore, these are the spirits of living air. So we'll jump right into the cultural significance of these. The Sylphs symbolize the sacred and animating nature of air, representing inspiration, communication between realms, and the life-sustaining power of breath. So as we saw in this story, it was hugely emphasizing the importance of breath, but not only the importance of breath, but how there is so much that is carried within the air itself. So what we breathe in and what we breathe out, it does impact our natural world. It impacts our reality. Hence why breathing in the air quality is a big item with manifestation. And like with the story of the alchemist. So it kind of reminds me of this story in The Alchemist when the old king tells him that when we truly want something, the universe conspires to help us get it. And I think that that happens through the transition of air and wind in the sky. And that's what this story was talking about quite a bit. The important note for this first story is that every breath is a bridge between the visible and the unseen, carrying the quiet energy that sustains and inspires life. I think a item that I really enjoyed about this story as well is that it doesn't emphasize whether it's good or evil, the wind itself, but the air and what moves within it and the ever changing quality of it means that it does get imprinted with what's said around it. The way we move, the things that happen, the air does take part of that energy and carry it forward. And with the second one, we move right into China. So with Feng Bo, the keeper of the winds, we move more into the madam of the winds, so a deity who protects the winds. And so with story two, I really liked how the wind is essential to the manifestation of our chi. So exactly what story one said and exactly what the others are saying moving forward. I really just enjoyed how with the elements have so many qualities that we could use them for in today's day and age. They represent so many things, but they also help us harness certain qualities within ourselves, certain manifestations within ourselves. But the wind specifically is manifestation. So the energy that we put in and out, this is where karma is seen and where it is, I think, the first exchange of karma happens. Because I don't believe that karma is, oh, the universe is out to get you. I think it's exactly what the old king said. In The Alchemist, so he just explained that the universe conspires to help us, but karma is the actual energy we put out will come back to us because it has to. So when we preach and say good things will come back, positive intentions, positive vibes will come back. And the same happens with our negative thoughts and our negative emotions and feelings. The more we push that out there, the more that's actually going to be what we receive. And in story two, it shows that yes, the wind is essential to the chi in China, to our chi, the life force that's in all of us. The spirit and the soul we often associate in many mythologies as almost like the airy, the smoky, the light, substance, translucent kind of thing. And here that's what it's saying, is that that's our chi that we're seeing potentially. So the cultural significance for Feng Bo is that Feng Bo represents the sacred nature of wind as an expression of qi, symbolizing balance, transformation, and the life-giving power of breath within Chinese cosmology. The important note for that one is the breath carries the rhythm of the universe. By honoring it, we attune ourselves to the unseen forces that guide and sustain life. Story three, now we see that Ehecatl, we see the breath of creation. So how air and breath was actually physically needed to create our world. So we see it in this story, story three, the Aztec story, but it goes back to the Bible as well, where God breathed life into this world. That's what happened here, was that not only did it take the sacrifice of the sons, like we've seen a number of times previously, but it also takes the breath of creation itself, meaning that regardless of what we do as humans, we need something divine. We need the help of something above us that can bring life. The one thing that we can't do is create life. And we see it through all these horror stories and all these depictions of villains that try to, I guess, become God or become this force that can create just as much or create just as great of things. We see the dangers of that. And it's not that creation itself is the danger, it's just that the intention, like with the story one and two we're talking about, and then story three, that divine understanding, that being a part of something otherworldly is also needed to help with creation. Just a fun little magical way of life, I believe, too. Just kind of reminds me as well of when everyone takes their first breath and how it's like of course, I don't remember what it was like to be a baby and take a big breath like that. But what I mean, I guess, is that just like creation needed air, needed that breath to breathe life into it, we as beings breathe in that same air, that same life force right when we're born, right when we come into this universe, we come into this world, we breathe in the creation itself. And that's when we start crying. That's how our doctors know and our parents know that we're alive, in essence. But the cultural significance for this one is that Ehecatl represents the sacred and life-changing power of wind, emphasizing breath as the animated force of creation and a vital connection between humanity and the divine. And the important note for this one is that every breath echoes the first wind that set the cosmos in motion, reminding us that life itself is sustained through sacred energy. Okay, story 4, we've seen story 4 as well before. This is where Tenjin, he went off and wasn't Tenjin before, wasn't Tenjin until after his life, but he went off and was exiled and was mistreated and everything. And then after his life was over, his spirit wreaked havoc. His spirit was showcasing that there's not balance right now. We're not living in balance in accordance with the laws of nature, in which, regardless where we go, it is to love our neighbors. Stop. It is to love our neighbors and to protect those who can't protect themselves or maybe just need extra help. But what we get to see in this 4th story is that the wind is an active force around us. So we've seen it in the others. We've seen a couple different depictions of wind. In this 4th story, it is an active force. It is an active being, an active thing that is expressing life after it has passed. So we've seen the depiction, well, we've seen in a number of different days and stories how spirits, our ancestors, are within the wind, right? So we've seen how there are deities in the wind, there are messages in the wind, there is life, breath in the wind. Now, this one, we see the ancestors within the wind and how it doesn't need to be our direct ancestor. It could be a member of our community. And if we are together as a community, we are working for a better life or to survive life, and then we outcast or exile people on misunderstanding or pride or political silliness or whatever it may be, that nature is going to make itself known. Nature is going to go, hey, yeah, you think that you can just treat one person like this? Like, everybody matters. That's what I like about a lot of these folklores, is that well, a lot of these stories is that, yeah, it is one person causing this major upheaval. Oh, they treated one person badly. Why is it a big deal? Because everybody should be treated like they matter. I'm not saying that we all kiss each other's butts or we lie or manipulate or, all these different things of pretending. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that everyone does hold their own purpose within our circle, within our realm. And it's interesting to see how people kind of live up to that. And Tenjin, I mean, his force was something that Japan knew right away, right? That we have got to appease the ancestors. We have got to make this right. So while they couldn't change anything because he had already passed away, they rewrote how he would be remembered. So, like this too, because it makes me think that nature also enforces the truth. And if after so much time it's so corrupt that the truth can't even be found, I think that's when the slate is kind of wiped clean. I think that's when we see the floods. I think that's when we see disasters, is when areas are so filled with corruption and lies that the truth couldn't even be uncovered, even in the people that experienced it. Because that's a scary thing in today's day and age as well, is that the manipulation and the brainwashing. I mean, people that are living experiences, you could talk to them and they've been convinced they haven't even lived them. It's crazy. And nature, whatever happens in the other world, it seems to correct those wrongs. It seems to clear things up for us. And in the case of Tenjin, it cleared it up right away for Japan. With those 4 stories, though, our daily thread is that Sylphs whisper through the unseen currents of breath. Feng Bo releases the wind that shaped the world's balance. Ehecatl sets the cosmos into motion with sacred air. Tenjin sends inspiration from the celestial realm above. Each movement of wind carries intention and guidance. Each breath connects the human spirit to the heavens. The sky is not empty, but alive with sacred presence. And in every inhale, the voice of the universe is heard. So, with all of those in mind today, those are your 4 stories on the sky. Our reflection question is, what is calling from above? So, what is calling me from above, or what is signaling to me from above? And how can I understand it? I guess, what can I do with it? What is it trying to tell me? How do I figure out? There's so many different ways to read the wind. And so right now we just need to kind of identify what is it that's calling us from above? What is it or who is it? And then our activity for today is to take 7 deep breaths, attentive to the space each one opens within you. So we're going to take 7 deep breaths. We'll breathe in on 4 and then release on 4. Breathe in on 4. So we'll just do box breathing for these 7 breaths and we'll do them together. So we'll sit up straight and start our breaths. Inhaling through our nose, exhaling through our mouth. So we'll do 4 more and pay attention to the space that each breath takes in your body. Okay, so you can do that a couple times if you'd like. You can do a bunch of different kinds of box breathing or different breath work in general. But yeah, just take 7 deep breaths today. You can either redo it with us or do it on your own, but be attentive to the space that it takes up in your body and what space it is taking up, the energy that you feel when it's in you. And then my final thought for you today is just respond to quiet guidance without demanding certainty. So we don't always need to know, like we said, what is trying to be said to us through the wind. Right now, it's just who's calling us. What is it that's talking to me? What or who is talking to me from above? And to just remember that we don't always need certainty because we won't always get it. And most of the time, we won't get it. But that's all I have for you guys today for the sky. So thank you for joining me today on Folklore and Flourish. And remember, think about what is calling you from above. Take those 7 deep breaths. And we will see you tomorrow on April 14th for the flicker. See you guys.